All right, hey, I'm Great Grandpa BB. Welcome back to the show. Hey, I'm here with my friend Miles Russell, and we're in Denver, Colorado, right by the River Creek here. The creek, however you want to say it. There's water running right next to us with ducks. How you doing, Miles?
I'm doing amazing.
Yeah.
Happy to be here.
Nice.
This,
You were just working at Tesla all day today, right?
I was, yeah.
That's a pretty fantastic job. I have a little bit of background in electric vehicles. It's a very intriguing subject to me,
Yeah.
Like what's past it's one of the first inventions along with the gasoline engine back when those cars were first being developed,
Yeah, that's cool.
It's pretty wild. Like, I know that electric cars were always marketed towards women because they were like quiet. They were like not dirty.
Yeah.
And then gasoline cars were like the manly cars or whatever. And so, but, being as how like women really didn't even have checking accounts at that time period.
Yeah.
It was like, who are they going to advertise to,
Yeah, it makes sense because electric vehicles probably had like shorter distances that they could run. And,
Yeah. They were,
So.
yeah. I don't know what the range was comparatively at the time, though. I mean, I know that the gasoline was pretty inefficient at the time as well.
Yeah.
But it probably had to do with how expensive it was. There's a lot of factors that go involved, like what big oil became and like how they could exploit the resources easier than another one,
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Tesla, they got a lot of things going.
Yeah.
They got a lot of things going for them.
Yeah, I work in the energy department, so
Okay.
They have like their solar installations, solar roof, and batteries.
Cool. Yeah.
So I mostly focus on batteries, but I am a solar photovoltaic specialist. So
Nice.
I'm kind of well-rounded on the solar side of things.
Yeah. That's fun. I saw you had a Tesla solar roof at your place there.
Oh, that was just a sign because I'm trying to convince my neighbors that we should get solar roof. Yeah.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
And then the power walls that come with that too, right?
Yep. That just helps you like harvest the energy. If the grid goes out, you still have power to your home, because even with solar, you still need a second source in order for it to operate. So if the grid goes down, you still have your batteries. Some people use a generator.
Yeah. And I like that whole concept. And then there's like a power controller, inverter in it and all that. It's like all one package deal, you know? Yeah, that's future. That's the future, like basically.
It really is, yeah.
I remember seeing something about the Tesla solar roofs, like that they made shingles that made it look like it was like a regular roof. Like,
yeah, I installed those for about a year.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
It's really great.
Interesting. Yeah. Was it manufacturing went away from it, or like was there problems with that like method, or just popularity?
There's always problems when it's a new product, really. And I think Tesla just still really is involved with solar roof installations and things.
Yeah.
But they're still working out the kinks and getting used to like.
Well, and that's I appreciate the drive of the company.
Yeah.
Like they're trying to push the envelope. They're making new things. They're taking risks. Which you don't see very often with people with a lot of money. People who have a lot of money want to keep that money, and therefore they bet it on things that don't have very much risk at all.
Yeah. Well, I think of it as like becoming energy independent.
Yeah.
And once you're like harvesting your own power and manipulating it for your usage, it really sets you like free from utilities.
Yeah. And it's a huge power for decentralization too.
Yeah.
Of like really like conceptually like not just like the electricity grid, but like power itself, like the actual like it's electricity is like a real thing that really like changes our entire way of life, like it makes our way of life possible, and if other people have control over that, then they have power over you. And if they don't, then you have your own, technically you have your own power.
Yeah, totally. I say being an electrician is like the closest thing you could do to being a wizard without actually being a wizard,
The Wizard of Menlo Park, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, man. I grew up always going to Henry Ford Museum in the Greenfield Village up in Dearborn, Michigan there. And they have all of like Edison's laboratory and all of his jars with like sulfur and like cobalt and like there's a million jars on a shelf, and it's like in your mind that's like what a mad scientist is. But really his best invention was the research laboratory, I guess.
I'd agree.
Yeah. You put a bunch of people in the room, you say, this is what we're going to do. This is what you do I'm paying you to do these experiments, And it's just trial and error until you hit upon something, really.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many, like, new occupations that, probably didn't necessarily really exist, like, 50 years ago, or, like, it did, but there was only, like, one or two people doing it, and...
Yeah.
I see so much new technology creating that space for, like, young people. And I think it's really cool,
I mean, they're on top of it, too. They see the possibilities. They're like, you know what? I wish this was doing this instead, or whatever. It's like, it's already magic, man. Like,
everyone has somewhat of an engineer in them,
Yeah, I think so. Or, I would hope. I would hope so. Yeah. What shapes are we dealing with? What mechanically is happening in the situation? I mean, if that doesn't pique your curiosity, you know what I mean? So some of my background with electric vehicles, right? Like, I was like 5 years old. My dad and my grandpa are building an electric car in the garage, right?
Nice,
1989, right? To age me a little bit there. But it was like, they're just like stripping down an old Honda Civic down to its chassis, and then they had like another like fiberglass body that they were putting on top of it with like, I think it was around 8 lead acid batteries, super heavy chunking batteries, like golf cart or like boat batteries, marine, kind of tech. And then like just big motor controller, big motor in the front, but I mean, not huge, but like it got up to about 50-55 miles an hour in all the test runs, and like he was running it in like, kit car, running guns all around the state and things, showing it off. And they're, like trying to drag race like Shelby Cobra kit cars and shit.
Wow.
It was pretty fun. Going around to those different conventions, all the smell of like racing fuel in the air and all that, and it's like, oh, my dad's the guy with the electric car over there, It's like, and there's like he had like a little solar panel on the back of it to like charge to a little 12 volt for for headlights and radio and stuff like that, starter.
Nice,
I guess it doesn't have a starter. It's an electric car. But yeah. So I don't know. It was always interesting, like growing up and seeing all that tech in your garage. Just it's there, We have this. This exists, and then like I'm in the 4th grade, and they're passing out, pamphlets of like the solar car races that the colleges are doing across Australia, the Tour de Sol, and all of these things. Like that was in like '94 or whatever. And I'm just like, wow, like this is the future. Like I know all about this. I'm gonna tell everyone in my class about it.
That's amazing.
I always wanted to be an engineer, but I never ended up going that direction. But
there's still time.
Right? Yeah. I've taken a couple hybrid electric car, supplemental classes from a guy up in Massachusetts, and took an electric bike repair class a couple months ago. But it's like I'm never my heart's never really been there with it, like I like knowing about it, and I like, like the curiosity is quenched, right?
Yeah.
And then I'm like, okay, cool, what else are we gonna learn now,
Yeah.
And but that doesn't make a good business model.
Yeah, totally.
unless I'm doing this. And then I'm like, oh, I can talk about this stuff all day long, you know? And like, I love talking about it, you know?
Yeah, I mean, the only constant is change. So it makes sense that you're always looking for the next thing, you know?
Yeah.
And it's really important to just think, you know, like, what does it take for me to like accomplish those goals? Like, who do I have to become? Like, what do I have to do? Whether that be like being more organized or being more like communicative, or you know, just changing your outlook on life in order to like get closer to your goals, you know?
Yeah, well said, man. Yeah, I completely agree with that, you know? Like, because to me, well, in the world today, there's a lot of specialization, you know? There's a lot of people, like, they go to school for one thing, and then they have to do that thing because they have to make money to pay off the loans for that degree or whatever they got. And I've been lucky enough to be in a situation where I just never went down those roads and just completely stayed generalization across the board.
Yeah.
I'm going to school for this, but I'm also doing all these things. And then I started going to school for politics. Only took one class in it. Completely abandoned it. Went to anthropology. Completely abandoned that in a way. Like I still took like one anthropod class per semester, but I was also taking like geology and aviation and you know, like stats. You know, like, I don't know. Like, I just started looking up like professors on campus that like, there was like that rateyourprofessor.com for a minute. And so like I was like, oh, this guy, he teaches aesthetics. I don't even know what that is. Like, let's take that class.
Totally. I mean, I had similar college experience where I thought I was going to be a graphic design major, you know? But it just felt like really competitive, and like art was a hobby for me. It wasn't something that I wanted to necessarily make my work.
For sure.
And there was a solar program that was having low enrollment issues, and I remember getting upset over my Excel bill, just like why am I paying this? You know, like, I need power to live my life and go to school and like charge my computer, like
definitely,
you know, do so many different things. So I believed, like, if I could learn how to like harvest that energy, I could get like further in life, and it wasn't competitive at all at that time, you know, like no one wanted to necessarily like look into solar because they didn't think it was going to be as big as it has been, you know? And now looking back, I'm like thinking of how incredible it is that I've had the opportunity to work on like new systems and new equipment that is like changing the way we live today, you know?
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, the prices have come down to the point where it becomes, you know, not just feasible but competitive, you know? And before, when you were taking those classes, it was still, I mean, Jimmy Carter had solar panels on the White House back in the 70s, right? Like, tech's been here, you know, for a minute.
Yeah, it has, just people weren't open to it, you know? They have their system, and I mean, change is hard to convince the majority, you know?
But, and really, we just got here with fossil fuels. I mean, we really haven't been using them very long. You know, so to like, at the time, it was an easy changeover, I think, from horses, just because there's shit in the street. You know, like, it's like, that's like, oh, I don't have to have shit in the street? Great, sign me up. You know, I'm going to buy one of these Model Ts right now, and I'm going to make $5 an hour in a factory, you know, like, or $5 a day or something like that. Totally. And it was like, it was easy, I think, in a way, you know, because you could see the change and it looked positive immediately. Whereas, like, the shit in the street now, and metaphorically, is like carbon in the air, and no one can even see it. And it's like, I don't think it's even here. Like, I can't see it at all, and it doesn't feel hotter. I don't know. So it's like not intuitive. It's not like right in your face like it was before.
And I'm a huge advocate of sustainable energies, of course, but I also feel like oil has its place, you know, like there's a lot of like goods and services that we use, like plastics and oils for, which I don't necessarily think that we should eliminate those things, but I do believe by switching over to electric cars, we can preserve our oil and our you know, our resources longer than if we were to just use it all up, burning it in the air, you know?
It's like, well, we got 40 years left. After that, we got to figure something else out. It's like, well, I mean, we could, but we also could like try to like, you know, be efficient with things, like with our resources and try to make them last.
And my fear is like one day I'm going to go to a gas station and there's just not going to be any gas left, you know, but knowing that like I have my solar, I have my power walls, and I have an electric vehicle, there's nothing stopping me from making that next mission or adventure, you know.
And really, when it comes down to it, you know, gas automobiles don't even they're not even going to be competitive in 10 years, you know?
Yeah.
Like, I heard there was like a stat that said that there's like, was it like 300 and something moving parts in a combustion engine vehicle versus like, I don't know, 29 or something in an electric vehicle. It's like completely lopsided as far as like repairs and like upkeep of a vehicle. Yeah. No oil changes, no transmission fluids, like, you know, no fluids really at all, unless it's in the battery or something.
Yeah, the only fluid I use in my Tesla is a windshield wiper fluid, which is necessary, you know.
Yeah.
But it's low cost, you know.
Yeah,
easy
definitely.
To add to your
we
vehicle.
got that tech. I mean, we got squirt guns down, man. Like,
yeah, exactly.
No problem.
And that was a huge selling factor for me to like make the switch. Being like so young and not like necessarily feeling like I could actually afford it, but you know, I got approved for the loan, and I did that research where I wanted to, you know, I had a Dodge Grand Caravan before switching over, and I was constantly getting oil changes, constantly getting brake changes, like doing so much maintenance on my vehicle where I was spending way more than I am now, you know, and just my car payment, you know. That's amazing.
Yeah. You know, like it's amazing that it's like already here. You know?
It really is. Yeah.
And then with what are they called? The 8640 batteries? Is that what the new ones are? You know what I'm talking about? It's
I'm not familiar, no.
Yeah, there's it's been in the news recently. I just been clicking on it. I just found out about it like I think last week. But there's like a new battery design that's supposed to go in production next year for Tesla mainly. And it's I think it's called the 8640 battery, and they basically are lighter with more energy density, and it's like they said it's a tabless design, and I'm not exactly sure what that means, honestly, you know, but like whatever it is, and they don't use cobalt. I think they're switching out the material.
That's incredible. Yeah. I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah. So it's supposed to be more range, and I think a little bit lighter and a little bit more cost-effective kind of a thing, you know?
And I mean, like, batteries, like, their life isn't forever, but you can still use those materials and recycle them into making new batteries.
Yeah, we have to.
Yeah, it's incredible, science, I guess, that we have the capability of, like, prolonging that material, if you will. Mm-hmm. And, I don't know, I think batteries are an amazing investment. Like, I don't know if you're into stocks or something, but I feel like for investors, like, batteries are the way to go because they are our future. And to me, a battery is just like a refrigerator, you know, like you store all of your food there for later use, and we're just storing our power for later use rather than pushing it onto our neighbor and the utilities gaining more profits for energy that they're not even producing, you know?
For sure, for sure. Yeah, it's weird to think about a world before refrigerators. And
it really is,
It's like, so you got to get the food and eat it before it goes bad. Okay. How did you get enough food? Like every day you had to go get food then, or what?
Exactly.
Where are we at? How far did we come that quick? You know, like refrigerators probably didn't even become mainstream until like what, the 30s or something, or maybe the 20s.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm sure there's still homes that don't have them. You know?
So it's been like 100 years. It's like, wow. Yeah, that in and of itself, and then energy. I mean, have you heard of like what is it, potential energy type of systems, where it's not like a battery per se, but like I heard what was it? The science guy.
Bill Nye?
Bill Nye, that guy. He was talking about it one day, and it kind of struck me when he said it. Like, because it was very well. I'd never heard of the idea before, but he was talking about basically building, just digging giant holes in the ground and putting like a piston type of structure with a lot of weight, and then having like solar farms next to it, and then storing the energy from the solar farm in the fact that you're using motors to pull this piston up over like water, or you're pushing water under it, something of that effect. And then so that stores a ton of potential energy, and then at nighttime when the sun goes down, you let all of those barriers or dams or whatever they're using go, and it like you run the water through the turbines and it produces the electricity again.
Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah, for sure. And it's like a battery, but it's like
I haven't heard of that, but I have heard of like tracking systems for solar where it like kind of heats up a resin, and as it like heats up, it turns, and then once it starts hardening again as the sun sets, it like turns back, so that's pretty cool to like know that like you can just manipulate materials to do the work for you. And, that's
definitely
really cool.
That sounds like a couple other things that I heard of, like the molten salt reactors and things too. The solar salt, like those are mainly in the desert. I saw one in Vegas just outside the city limits once.
Nice.
But yeah, they basically just superheat salt till it's molten, I guess there's some like a lot of the new nuclear fission power plants are going in that direction too, or at least the designs are. I don't know how many are actually being built. I know a lot of people are afraid of the tech, but there's like a lot of people proponents of like the micro reactors, something like that I think it's called, where like it's just like you don't have as much energy in each one, but they're modular, so you can like add over time, for more electricity, more power.
Wow, that's amazing.
And it's like it brings down the risk of a meltdown drastically, because it becomes, well, according to the proponents, it becomes essentially non-existent for a meltdown to happen, because you have enough like salt in the bottom of it to like have it melt completely down, and it would just be there, it wouldn't like blow up and spread somewhere, which I like that idea a lot.
I think my favorite sustainable energy outside of like solar, I would have to say, is probably algae. Because it does help reduce the carbons that are in the air. And I think that's incredible.
For sure. I've heard that like the coral reef is like one of the biggest producers of oxygen in the world, something like that. That's worrisome.
It really is. It really is.
Oh man. But algae, you can turn that into fuel too, right?
Yep.
Is that what you were?
Referring to,
Gotcha. And that's its own. Having oil, having any kind of like a carbon, hydrocarbon, right? Like that's really nature. Like we think of it as like, oh, we're using fossil fuels, that's against nature, but really it's like it's a natural process of decomposition, right? Like when organic matter decomposes, it turns into these hydrocarbons, which is like the most, like as far as what we've found in the world, like that's the most energy density in a system that we've ever discovered. Like, which is like, if you put it that way, you're like, oh wow, it is really great,
Totally.
And it is, and but we're still proponents for like using things wisely.
Totally.
It's like damn. I've been watching a lot of things about having like sustainable systems, having like a resource-based economy and things like that, where in a lot of ways, like the stories that we have of ourselves and the world and how we operate and how we trade things and how we like, because money's energy in a lot of ways, because it's like, okay, I gave this much energy, I hope to get that much back in a form that I can count or something, right?
There's always going to be some sort of efficiency loss.
And especially and that's kind of why I don't like the stock market, just because it's like I feel like some of these companies, like I heard it said the other day, it's like, what if I started an Amazon company, that sold everything that they do. I hire just as many employees as they do, but I try to automate every system possible with every robot imaginable, okay?
Yeah.
And so I'm hiring them to come in for 5 hours a week, just to kind of keep everything going. But I'm paying them the same amount as Amazon would, until the point where I really don't need them to come in at all, and I'm just paying them to live.
Yeah.
It's like, like, is that feasible? And I mean, that still keeps capitalism going, because then people have money to spend.
Yeah.
In that form, it's like, yeah, we don't need a UBI that the government can control, because the companies themselves can control it,
Yeah.
because there's no way you can have capitalism without people having money,
Yeah.
like, and that's kind of like the one redeeming way out of that kind of economic collapse is, like, I think if you are able to exploit the fact that we have deregulated capitalism to the point, or just deregulated corporate, restrictions to the point where, like, if you start a corporation, you can do like anything you want. Yeah. Like, it's like to the point where it's like, well, we don't need to change anything. I just need to start a corporation and then just do whatever I want, you know, like whatever I think that means,
But I think as long as it's not like harming the environment or like, like,
and that's what I'm, like, that's what I'm talking about, really.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're doing now.
And right? I also think it's not just the lack of funds, it's also the lack of time,
Right.
Like, so many people work their lives away and then don't ever really have time to, like, spend their money, so then the economy is hurting that way as well,
Definitely, because if you don't have time, then how are you going to learn what it is that you need to know? And that's the other side of automation, right? Like, if we can automate it, why don't we? Like, I feel like it's just a net positive for everybody. People have more time to do what they want to do and to learn these different things. And the more that more people know about this stuff, the more that we can change faster, really, to a more sustainable system. Because if we don't, we're dead in the water anyhow,
Yeah, we really are. Yeah, I don't know if there's any like fix-all solution for the problems within the world. But I do think, like, the bare necessities should probably be more provided, like food, shelter, water, electricity now, and even, like, the internet, So I don't know how we could get to a place where those things are more affordable or provided, whether that's including the government or just changing the way that we interact with those things or provide those things for the people,
Yeah, I completely agree with that. Yeah, it's we live in the story of our society is almost like if you don't play by our rules and you don't work to the grindstone, then you don't get to eat.
Totally.
It's like, why is it like that?
Yeah, I mean, no one, like, chose to be born. We were just brought into this world, and I'm grateful that I was, so I'm gonna make the best of it. And I hope other people want to do that same thing,
Exactly. And I mean, are we getting to the point? I mean, we use, like, hot button words that we use, like capitalism or socialism or any kind of economic structure, like, we're almost moving past those structures now, because those structures were, like, invented and kind of formulated during the time of the Industrial Revolution, for, like, the worker class and the ruling class kind of, organization of society. And it definitely feels like we're moving past that in some ways. With, like, the blockchain, Bitcoin type of things, we have a deregulated, money system, even, just the idea of that happening, or like solar, decentralize the, the actual electricity, or even like voting methods or things like that, like where I mean, hey, if there's an issue and we all feel one way about it, why can't we just vote on the blockchain? You know, like that seems to be a trustworthy ledger that, like, I trust it more than like voting in, you know, real life or whatever, like we're doing.
Yeah, I think cryptocurrencies are incredible for our world today, but it's also like our U.S. dollar is no longer backed by gold or silver,
right.
You know?
Yeah,
and
exactly.
It's not that gold or silver has changed, you know, like an ounce of gold is still an ounce of gold. It's
still just
fact
as scarce.
that our dollar, the value of our dollar has changed, you know, and that's insane to me, you know, like that we're producing money that it costs more to like produce the money than the money is value, like face value is even worth, you know? Like,
it's all driven on debt. It's like every time you make $1, you make another $1 of debt at the same time. And it's like, okay, well, how is that even feasible? It's like a Ponzi scheme that just keeps building until infinity, I guess, or like what are we doing?
I don't know. I think part of it is people just getting rich and richer and holding on to their money and not letting it get back into circulation, but still having to create new money in order for something to be paid for. You know?
Yeah. And so you got this inflation thing happening over time. I mean, and that's why they're just like, oh, well, just put it in the stocks, because if you have it in the bank, your money's just going to devalue sitting there. It's like, what do you mean? Like, my money's going to devalue.
Like, totally. And
well, if you live too long, then your money's not going to be worth anything. It's like, oh, okay, well, why did I work for it?
Totally. Life is interesting. I think it's important to just, you know, cover your basis and set yourself free as much as you can from, like, corporate businesses being in control of what your power consumption is, or production is, that,
food,
for that matter.
Any kind of anything that you need in your life, you know, where is it coming from? You know, and who ends up with the money at the end of the day? You know. And how much are those people paying their employees? You know, like, all just vital questions, you know?
So much of the world is based off of convenience these days, especially in America, you know? It's just like, it's more convenient to buy a container of hummus than it is to make the hummus from scratch, when if you make it from scratch, it's much cheaper, you know? So. And
that's, I mean, that goes in what you said earlier, though. I mean, time, you know. Do I have time to sit down and make hummus from scratch, though? Or can I just buy it and it's done?
But time is money.
That's one thing that I don't have to do right now, because there's like 50 other things I have to do.
And it's sad that our world is like that today, you know. I think we need to slow down if possible.
And then, so to bring it back, I mean, if, like, let's say that once we cure, like, the chip shortage, like with the GPUs and the mining, the Bitcoin mining operations, people are going to start buying those like crazy again. Because I bought a card that was like $400 September before last, and it's like worth $1,800 now. And I'm like, what? Like, that was insane. But when it comes down to it, you got the blockchain, automation. All of these things need a lot of electricity, a lot of power, a lot more power than we're using right now to keep operational. And so that's the crux of the whole thing, you know.
I've installed solar and batteries for people who are mining cryptocurrencies. It's
genius.
A genius idea.
Yeah, exactly. I tried to do it once. I had like a little, I think it's a 1200 watt system, just like two 550 watt panels, and like basically just one AGM battery and an inverter. And like I was running this like ASIC miner off of that, you know, for a minute, but it was, like, it didn't last long. It wasn't enough, you know, to keep that guy going. And you know, whatever. But
you live and you learn.
I still made money off the deal, which is nice, but it was not like, pulling electricity from the grid and all of that, you know, like to keep the blockchain going. That's the part that's wasteful, you know. Since we don't have a grid that's based off of sustainable resources like that, you know. It's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard to get there. But you know, maybe we overlooked something, you know. I always want to think like, all right, so E equals MC squared, so all the matter is actually energy. Okay, well, what does that mean, right? Is there a way?
Totally.
There has to be, though, right?
I mean, that perspective. It keeps us willing to learn and willing to grow.
Yeah. And there's always, you know, you start talking that way, and they're like, you know, you'll get shot down really quick about perpetual motion machines and like, you know, everything else. And it's like, you can't have more energy coming out of a system than you put into it. It's like, yeah, but the system is energy, okay? Like, how are you not getting this? Like, if you I read Buckminster Fuller the other day, and the way that he talked about it, he's like, well, what we think is solid, it's really like, when you look at it closer, it's really like a bunch of star events. That's how close all the atoms are.
Okay. Wow.
Oh, okay. Yeah, like, that is wild. That is like, so what's out there is basically mirroring what's in here, and there's a lot of energy in the sun, so you're telling me.
Yeah. Totally.
And that's nuclear fusion, and will that ever happen, or do we have the right idea about that? Or, you know, it's like, I mean, maybe that's how the sun's made, but that's on an incredible scale, you know?
Yeah. I think with fusion, the amount of production you receive from such a small amount of material is fascinating to me. And I think, you know, like, that's how we grow and get further in life, is like putting in as little as possible but getting as much as possible out of it. You know?
Yeah, for sure.
So I hope that someday people could be more open-minded to fusion energy, but I think it also depends on like location. You know, if you are in a very sunny state, maybe it makes more sense to utilize solar. If you're near the ocean, maybe it'll do some kind of like hydroelectric system. So I think it really just boils down to, you know, like, where are you and what resources do you have and how can you make the most of them, you know?
Yeah. So. And, you know, like, our muscles, you know, like, can't we just like work out and move things and turn a gear and spin and, you know, like generators?
Yeah, I mean, hamsters love to run on a wheel. Like, how many hamsters are you willing to raise?
An army of hamsters.
So.
And then, what was the other thing I was just thinking? Okay, so have you heard of, I think it was maybe I want to say 3 years ago, I read this article, and it was about this circuit that they produced on like a regular silicon chip, you know, that was able to somehow the electricity in it, like they were able to like double the amount of electricity that went in it. I mean, they were only getting like milliwatts off of it, you know, at this point or whatever, but it was proof of concept, you know, where they actually made a circuit that produced electricity because of some, I don't know what the formulation of diodes and transistors, resistors that they use, you know. But if you were able to make a silicon chip like we do, like in that computer there, like just to produce electricity, you know?
Yeah.
Like, could you build a chip in conjunction with the actual processor chip, put it in our phones, and then just power themselves?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure if you could think it, you could make it happen. And there's like the kinetic energy, just like within the movement of the phone, like as you're walking throughout your day, maybe that could charge it, or
or at least that's enough to put into the system to keep it running. You know, like, because if you can multiply that energy, you know, through a system of circuits like that, you know.
And with like regenerative braking, for instance, it's like as you're like slowing down, you're creating more energy for your car to go further.
You're just harvesting it, straight from the kinetic energy, the motion of the vehicle itself. Yeah, it's pretty incredible.
So
I had a hybrid vehicle I used to drive around a few years back, and that was always just a really fun thing to learn. And you're just teaching people, in the car with you, every time I press this brake.
It's amazing, like driving up to the mountains and you're like, oh, I don't know if I'm going to have enough power to get back, but then you're driving back and you're like, oh, I have more power than when I left,
I've heard that can be dangerous, though, in the mountains. You produce too much electricity going down the hills.
I'm not sure, I've never had a problem with it thus far, so.
Okay, that might have been some of the earlier models, like the Model 1 Prius or something or another.
Maybe there's just like a cap where they're like, okay, we're not gonna kick that.
I remember there was a warning, like where you could like blow up your battery or something or another, like going downhill and for braking too much.
Probably if it was like really charged, or you could always probably just kick it into neutral, and I don't know if that would help. So
I don't know if that would like shut off the regen brakes or what, you know, like. Because it feels like the system itself is based, like you're using the generator as the brake, right? Because like you're using a magnetic brake, essentially, like the resistance there.
And I've seen like magnetic trains, which are just like powered on the forces of magnets, which is like mind-blowing to me.
Or like just magnetically charging vehicles while they're driving on the road with magnets, I recently just got a charger for that phone, and then you just set it on there, and it charges wirelessly like all night, and I'm just like, this is so great. This
no more fumbling around in the dark. Where's the like little port to plug it into?
My problem was that like after about 2 years, that thing that the USB port just gets trashed, and then you just have to like, you're just like using all of your, like I had like a muscle pinch in my back because of it at one point. I was like calling up like this massage therapist. I'm like, I don't know what happened. I need some major work done. And then once I started thinking about it for a week, I'm like, that is the son of a bitch like port. That's like, because then I felt it the one day when I was plugging my phone in.
I've had one time my phone just wouldn't charge, so I took it into the Apple store. And they were like, oh yeah, there was a like rabbit-sized lint ball inside your phone. So, that's just one less thing that you have to worry about.
I would just constantly take the air compressor to my like that was just like it became a periodic thing, where I'm just like, and you're just hitting it for a while too, you're like making sure the shit's coming out of it, and then with the actual charge port itself, man, it's just a pain in the ass, that mechanical physical touch thing. Why can't we just do it wirelessly with everything, And they did it with some electric buses in Indianapolis, in Indiana there for a while. I went to one of those hybrid electric car classes I went to was down there in Indianapolis, because that teacher, Craig Van Battenberg, he's like a mad scientist. He reminded me of like Doc Brown from Back to the Future in a lot of ways, but like in real life. I'm really passionate about just hybrid cars and electric cars and like all of this.
That's awesome.
I always like talking to that guy, and like at that class in Indianapolis, he had this like amazing roundabout talking point where he's just like, man, if JFK didn't get shot, then we would not be overfilling the oil in our Honda Civics today in 2018 or whenever it was. And I'm like, okay, how are you making that connection right now? And it all boiled down to the metric system and how we have to have like 3.5 quarts of oil in this engine, and I have 4 quarts, and if I'm a mechanic, I'm like, oh, I'll just put all of it in just to make sure. Or if it's 3.8, it's like, whatever, and then they bring the car back to me, and I have to fix it. Why can't we just have a standard system?
Totally. Or just like make the amount like less, or the
exactly.
bottle size,
but they're making them in Japan, and it makes sense in Japan maybe, or who knows what they're doing over there. Doesn't make sense to Americans though.
Yeah,
I think
but Americans have already like complicated a lot of things, like. And the rest of the world's using military time, and
Americans are complicated. Let's just say that, for sure. I think that there's like only 2 countries in the whole world that use the English measurement system, and it's like America and like Thailand.
Okay.
Which I was like, Thailand?
Guessed, yeah.
Like that really struck me odd, when I read that, and I was like, okay.
I have a tape measure that allows you to use both, one side is inches and the other side is centimeters.
Perfect,
and I love it because like if I notice like, oh, it's an even centimeter, I'm going to use that, and if it's like some crazy fraction, I'm going to try to avoid it for the most part,
Yeah, and for up to a meter stick, it's about a yardstick. I get that, you know, but then once you start getting into kilometers, most Americans' brains just go fuzzy, because like, how do I even conceptualize what a kilometer is, And luckily, I mean, if you run 5Ks and things, you're like, okay, 3 miles is 5 kilometers.
Yeah.
So that's how I've always been able to like square that circle on the fly if I have to. I don't usually have to.
I mean, I do that same thing when I'm like learning a different language, interacting with a Spanish-speaking person in like Mexico or Barcelona or something, and I'm always just thinking of like, what is the interaction that I'm doing, and like how would that relate, and I wish I could be better about just like knowing exactly or understanding, but sometimes you just have to like convert back and forth in order for things to make sense.
Right, yeah. Lost in translation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, English is good for that. I mean, we got a lot of words that mean a lot of different things at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it blows my mind that we use both AC and DC, like, and inverters to convert. I'm just like, why can't we just have DC appliances, people? Like,
right, yeah. It would make a lot more sense, you know? The transformer industry is yelling out in pain for you just saying that right now. The old Tesla versus Edison wars of old, exactly. It's still present with us today. It's interesting. It's been a trial and error, how many different ways can we do this? How many different ways can we fail at this,
But you're losing efficiency every time you convert it. So.
That is true.
Yeah,
and one thing, I don't know if you've ever watched Star Wars before. It's kind of a cult classic. So, in the original one, you have R2-D2, right? And you have the guys caught in the trash compactor, the Death Star, right? And they're like, R2, figure out that code, talk to the computer system, shut it down, and like he has like the one port that like links in to the port in the Death Star. It's like through the entire universe, like they decided that this is the computer port that we're using, but like from America to Japan, like it's completely like Chinese, so to speak, right? It's like from Apple to Microsoft, in the same country. You can't have like I can't have the same phone and have the same connector. It's. But R2 has like one connector that rules them all somehow, Like that to me I was like, that's impressive. You guys like as much as you guys fight between the Rebel Alliance and they're like, you guys agree on a lot more than you realize.
I mean, we could learn a lot from that.
What do you guys not agree on? Like, how do you guys like if you're the Empire, you want to fuck over the Rebel Alliance. Just change your connector ports, man. Like that'll do it. That'll take down your whole rebellion right there.
Yeah, I guess it just depends on what you're fighting for, right? Like all the bad guys think they're the good guy, and all the good guys think they're, could be possibly the bad guy in some ways,
They never saw the information wars as a possible avenue for fighting, apparently. Yeah, it's funny. It's funny because we always think that the future is going to be a lot like now. You know, like in Star Trek, the girls wore mini skirts because they made it in the '60s. You know, it's like, oh yeah, okay. Yeah. Obviously, that's what we always do from now on. You know. Or just like people fighting with lightsabers because it's like, well, we're gonna throw it back to the Camelot days and. I don't know. It's just super weird.
But then you still see resistance on certain things that like have always necessarily like been around, but like because it like an elevator, for instance, you know, like that we used to have operators, but then eventually we're just like we don't need someone to press the button. Anyone can press the button, you know, and like I see that. Same thing happening with like self-driving vehicles, right? You know, like they're like you have to have an operator, but not really. You know? Like, the technology isn't quite there yet, but I'm sure if we allowed like more investment, more time of like trusting that technology to do what it's designed to do, we could probably get there sooner than
definitely
we are getting. You know.
Yeah.
So.
And even like as far as the jobs thing goes, I mean, I know out in Oregon, or at least in Portland, they have like full service gas stations still. You know? Like, and that's the law. It's like, oh, I'm not allowed to push the button. Okay, cool.
Am I supposed to tip you?
Like I could have done it, dude. Like it's fine. Yeah, it's funny how that used to be. Well, it used to be like brand new thing, and people like normal people couldn't figure it out. You know. We're not going to put regular people in charge of flammable gasoline. You know, it was probably the thought process at the time period. You know. Well, gas stations themselves used to be like auto repair shops too. And like they used to come out, check your oil, like wash your windshield, give you gas, like check your air, your tires. Like they really like thought about safety. Totally. They're like, we need these roads to be as safe as humanly possible.
But I'm also like, there's probably more things that you're not supposed to touch under the hood, and like, you know, like, how can we lessen
leave it alone?
Injuries?
Let the professionals take care of it. Actually, it's like, I got a lot of lake water in the engine. Is that okay? I just poured oil straight into the gas in the gas port. Is that fine? Can I do that? Oh man, some sabotage. Damn, man. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I think that there has to be something in the lines of like the resonant frequency of like matter itself, or like some kind of way to unlock the potential of like what energy is, you know. I really think it's our only chance. You know, like some kind of bigger easy way to manipulate the energy that's just completely all around us all the time.
It's still very much a theory, and it's also like we know how to manipulate like the power and get it to where it needs to be safely, you know. And I think at some point that was just like enough, and we're like, okay, we're not like blowing things up or like hurting anyone, so let's go with this for a while. But there's, like you're saying, like with wireless technology, like there's so much more that we could be doing, and
it makes it accessible to people who don't know what it is. It is just gonna feel like Star Trek, you know. And that's what electric cars have been for the last 20 years to people who'd never seen them before, you know?
I mean, it was for me until I got one, and then I don't see myself ever going back.
It's like night and day. Well, cool, man. You want to say anything else? I can't think of anything else to cover right now.
No, I appreciate the time and the conversation.
Cool.
Awesome.
I feel like we should shake on that one. Job well done.
Whew.
Sweet.